on this video so far. I just want to make sure that we have the most folks online.
Please do start.
All right. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Ellana. Nice to meet you. I'm from CNN. I'm responsible for the region. I got a call recently from Nancy, who's a really great friend of mine and works at Teneo. And she said, look, John Wood is starting a new venture. It's called Hugo. Can you help moderate the session? And I didn't blink an eye. I just said yes. I think when I first read, I've been in Hong Kong for quite a long time. There was a time when I read in the newspaper that John Wood, who was Room to Read, was coming to Hong Kong. That said a lot about John and a lot about the city. So I'm here because I've seen the work that he's done in really trying to bring literacy to young generations. And so here we are today to start off Hugo. I'm here to moderate. We're joined by founding members of his new board, which I'm really happy to introduce you to. I just want to have a wave from Anne, Nick, Archana as well. And they're going to be introducing sort of the spirit and the why they've joined this new venture. They will also introduce three really remarkable stories of young women who've really benefited from Hugo and from John's work. And then we're going to hand it over to John. We'll have a short Q&A, but I'm really hoping that this Q&A will involve questions from all of you. If you can, please write your questions in the chat room, and we'll do that. So I'm just going to hand it over to John, who really doesn't need a lot of introduction. So over to you, John.
Okay, well, thank you, Ellana, for being here. Really appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you joining us today and moderating. And I want to thank everyone who's attending. We've been blown away with the number of people. We've had over 600 people sign up for our 2 sessions. And I've seen so many, as we look through the RSVP list, I've seen so many names of friends who have been, a lot of new friends, but a lot of friends who've been with me on this journey for 20, 30 or more years. So thank you to everyone who's joining in. It's an exciting day for all of us. As many of you may know, I quit Microsoft in 1999 to start Room to Read. And I would say starting Room to Read has been the greatest decision of my life, other than marrying Amy. Hi, love. Room to Read has just been the most spectacular thing. And I'm so proud of all that the global teams have accomplished. Room to Read's accomplishments life to date are mind-blowing. Over 23 million children being served. Literally over 125,000 young women in the girls' education program. We've raised over $700 million of funding and established the trusted global brand. I'm so proud of the team, and I'm so proud of Geeta Murali and her leadership as our 3rd generation CEO, the first non-founder CEO. And I feel like the organization is in great shape, is as strong as it's ever been, and it will continue to thrive. And it's a testament to the leadership team, the in-country teams, as well as the global boards we have built over the years, that I was able to step down in December and end any formal role with Room to Read. Of course, I'll always be a supporter and I'll always be a cheerleader for the organization. My mantra has always been recruit, delegate, repeat. Recruit, delegate, repeat. And we've been so successful at doing that that I've been able now to move on to my next challenge. And that is Hugo, which launches officially today. Hooray, we're launched. You know, a lot of friends have asked me, why do this, John? Startups are hard. Startups are time consuming. Startups take a lot of energy. You could coast for a few years. The world would forgive you for coasting for a few years. Take 2022 off, enjoy the beach in San Diego. But I don't want to coast because there's an issue that's been driving me crazy for a long, long time, a huge opportunity that's been driving me crazy for a long, long time. You know, at Room to Read, we always prided ourselves that we were run like a business. We were very buttoned up on our financials. We were low overhead. We hired a lot of corporate refugees to come in and run things. And like any business, we always ask the customer, how are we doing? What are we doing well? What are we not doing so well? What would you like to see us do that we're not doing? And if I can, maybe Chloe, if you can just run a few photos from some of the site visits, just to show some of the young people I was able to meet over the years. These are amongst the happiest moments of my entire life. Being with Syrian refugees in Jordan, seeing them finally have Arabic language children's books, little kids in India, in Vietnam, and Nepal, the list goes on and on and on. And as I mentioned, you know, we asked the customer, how are we doing? And I kept hearing one thing over and over. I kind of dropped the McKinsey speak. I didn't refer to customers and customer feedback, of course, but I would ask the young women, what do you want to be when you grow up? And a young woman would tell me, I want to be a nurse. I want to help people. And I said, great. Are you going to be a nurse? And she'd say, well, my family's poor. I don't have any money. Can you help me? Can somebody cover my tuition? Or I'd talk to a parent. If we can go forward in the next slide from one of our graduation ceremonies in Vietnam, this was an incredibly happy day because over 100 young women were finishing secondary school, and 90% of them were first in their family to ever finish secondary school. But if we can go forward one more slide, this was an interesting experience for me. It was somewhat bittersweet because I had a father who said to me, my daughter doesn't want to stop here. My daughter wants to keep going. My daughter wants to be a teacher, and she wants to help Vietnam develop. And you know, I would patiently explain to parents and students that Room to Read was going to stick to our knitting. We were doing two things that were gargantuan challenges, bringing primary literacy to millions of students and doing secondary school for literally over 100,000 young women. And that we couldn't be all things to all people. We had to be aware of scope creep. And I would, in my head, that answer would totally make sense. But in my heart, it kind of gutted me. And I could tell as the face of the daughter met the face of the eyes of the daughter met the eyes of the father, I could tell they were also disappointed that they just wanted someone to help them. They wanted an organization who could help them. And it was on that trip, I'm going to get a little bit personal here, but it was on that trip in Vietnam that I learned that my father had died. And I had said to him, I'm going to come home. And he said, no, come home. You've come home several times. He said, John, be in Vietnam. Those young women are expecting you. I want you there. Send me some photos, make my day. And I sat in my hotel room the night he died. And I vowed to him, I said, Woody, I'm going to do this someday. We all called him Woody. I said, I'm going to do this someday. We're going to formalize this. We're going to say yes to those parents. And what was happening already was that we were already doing a little of this informally. A number of my friends and I, when we met some of these young women, we would say to them, look, Room to Read can't do this, but guess what? I can. Here's my business card. Please go ahead and email me. And this started a very informal effort to help some of these young women, who many of them whom you're going to see today in these videos, to be able to go and literally shatter that last glass ceiling. It was a very informal effort, and it was somewhat random. It was just based upon who you met and whether or not you made a promise to them and whether or not their parents were bold enough to ask for your help. And I wanted to one day de-randomize it. And that's what we're doing with Hugo. We're going from reactive to proactive. We're going from maybe a random encounter to very, non-random. We're unrandomizing it. We're saying we're going to go out and shatter the glass ceiling. We're going to help these young women to shatter this remaining glass ceiling. Key to Room to Read success and key to Hugo's success will be a rock star board. I'm so proud today to be joined by 3 of the 7 founding members of our board. The 3 others will be on the next session, which will be tomorrow. But for now, I'm proud to hand it over to Archana. Archana is joining us from Singapore. So Archana, good morning.
Thank you, John. Hi, my name is Archana Parekh, and for 15 years, I've worked as an investment professional. However, I grew up in India, seeing wild inequality, and I always wanted to help fix it. Women carry half the sky, but they really do not have access to their fair share of opportunities. So I decided to support Hugo because I think John and Hugo are the kinds of people, the kind of organization that is going to bring an enormous amount of opportunity to all these women by putting them into university. And most importantly, this creates a huge multiplier effect by helping not just society, their families, and all the other people around them as women sort of reinvest those gains into their ecosystem. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I want to support Hugo because I see them clearly trying to make the effort to bend it towards justice. With that, let me introduce the video of Prem Kumari, who is a young girl from Nepal that was helped by John's efforts. And you can clearly see the effects that we're talking about here that we're hoping to do in large scale with Hugo.
Scholarship पाउँदाखेरिको फर्स्ट एक्सपिरियन्स म यति धेरै खुसी थिएँ नि त्यो कसरी भन्ने प्लस टू पछिको स्टडीलाई चाहिँ मैले कन्टिन्यू गर्न सकिरहेको थिएन होइन अब के गर्ने भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ जुन एकचोटि म स्कुल पढ्दाखेरि नै जुन गर्ल्स एजुकेसन प्रोग्रामको फाउन्डर चाहिँ होम भिजिटको लागि आउनुभएको थियो नाम चाहिँ भनिनँ मैले है होम भिजिटको लागि आउनुभएको थियो त्यतिखेर उहाँले त्यति होम भिजिटको लागि आउँदाखेरि चाहिँ तिमी के पढ्ने भनेर मलाई सोध्नुभयो होइन त्यतिखेर चाहिँ मलाई नर्स बन्न मन लागेको छ भनेर मैले भनेँ तर जब मैले युनिभर्सिटी स्कलरसिप पाएँ त्यसपछि म काठमाडौँ युनिभर्सिटी स्कुल अफ मेडिकल साइन्सेसमा साइन्सेस फर नर्सिङको लागि चाहिँ जोइन भएँ जुन चाहिँ 3 इयर्सको कोर्स थियो अहिले म त्यो कोर्स कम्प्लिट गरेर एज अ स्टाफ नर्स चाहिँ धुलीखेल हस्पिटलमा नै कार्यरत तर जब मैले स्कलरसिप पाएर आफ्नो पढाइ कम्प्लिट गरिसकेपछि होइन कम्प्लिट गरेर जब गर्न थालेपछि चाहिँ के भयो त मेरो परिवारको जुन छ नि आर्थिक स्थिति चाहिँ धेरै मजबुत भएको छ है मजबुत भएको छ अर्कोतर्फ भने मेरो भाइ बहिनीले चाहिँ आफ्नो पढाइलाई चाहिँ कन्टिन्यू गर्न पाएका छन् यो चाहिँ एकदम सकारात्मक परिवर्तन आयो होइन जसमा चाहिँ म धेरै नै खुसी छु मैले पाएको जस्तो स्कलरसिप चाहिँ अरूले पनि जुन आर्थिक स्थिति कमजोर भएर आफ्नो स्टडी कन्टिन्यू गर्न नपाउनु भएकोले पाउनुभयो भने चाहिँ होइन उनीहरूको के आर्थिक स्थिति चाहिँ मा चाहिँ इम्प्रुभ आउन सक्छ होइन अनि अर्को भनेको चाहिँ जुन आफ्नो स्टडीलाई कन्टिन्यू गर्न सक्ने भयो होइन उनीहरूले जहाँसम्म चाहिँ आफू के भन्छ त्यो इन्डिपेन्डेन्ट के भन्छ नि फाइनेन्सियल सपोर्ट है उहाँहरूले फाइनेन्सियल सपोर्ट पाउनु भयो भने चाहिँ मैले जुन जति दुःख पाएँ नि जुन आफ्नो इच्छा हुँदै पनि पढ्न नपाउनु भनेको त एकदम धेरै नै त्यो दुःख लाग्दो कुरा हो नि होइन मैले जति दुःख पाएँ नि त्यो दुःख चाहिँ उहाँले पाउनु हुँदैन होला पक्कै पनि जसरी मैले स्कलरसिप पाएर मेरो लाइफ चेन्ज भएको छ होइन मलाई जति सजिलो भएको छ उहाँहरूलाई नि त्यसरी नै सजिलो त्यस्तै सजिलो हुन्छ होला भयो
That was wonderful. And with that, I'm going to introduce my fellow board member, Nick Nash, who's also in Singapore. I also want to mention as I hand it over that Nepal is the country of Room to Read's birth, and it's also a place where Hugo will focus. With that, Nick, on to you.
Thank you so much, Archana. My name is Nick Nash, and I'm one of the 6 co-founders of Asia Partners here in Southeast Asia. My wife and I, as well as my colleagues at Asia Partners, have been supporters of John and Room to Read for many years, and I'm honored to be serving on the Hugo board. Doom Havai was the first woman from her village in Cambodia to attend university. She's the oldest child from a family of 11, and thanks to a scholarship, she had the opportunity to earn a bachelor's degree in environmental science. When I heard her story, I was struck by 2 things. One, how educating just one person in a family has an exponential cascading impact on that family's journey through time. When you help a young woman, you don't just help her, you also help her family and her community. And 2, a topic close to my heart, how much brilliance there is across the world's millions of villages, and how many of the world's challenges we could solve if there were more Doom Havais with degrees in environmental science, applying their wonderful minds to advance the human story. But as LeVar Burton used to say, you don't have to take my word for it. Let's hear from Doom Havai in her own words.
My name is Doom Havai. I am 31 years old and my nationality is Cambodian. I am from a family of 11 members and I am the oldest child in the family. I have a bachelor degree in environmental science, but since the corona time in late 2019, I have been moving to Germany. Now I am living here in Germany. I have finished my high school in August 2010. I decided to move to Phnom Penh city in a month later with so little money in my pocket. I tried to save as much as possible. In the city, I was walking around and tried to apply for every scholarship I could because my family could not afford to pay a university fee for me. But in 2 months later, I was receiving a phone call from Room to Read Cambodia that I got fully funded to study at the university. could you imagine how happy I and my family were at that time? With this scholarship, gave me a new pack of lives, a new chance to have a better education and skill. Together with my life experience and a better education, gave me a chance to have a better job. Without this scholarship, I have no idea where I am ending up now. With a better job, I got a better pay. With this money, I could support my living, my family living, and I could afford to pay a university fee for my brother and to pay an extra class and English class for my sister. And in the last 10 years, my family life has changed a lot. We become a happy family and we have enough to eat. I and my brother were able to build a new house for our parents, and we have been improving our life condition. In my opinion, a university scholarship is play an important role to help young people from rural area to get a better education. A good education doesn't affect a person who receive it only. They've been reflected to his or her family, workplace, and society as well. So a better education is the key to developing the country in the long run. At the moment, I am taking a German language course. After the language course, I plan to start a master degree here in Germany. After that, I will go back to my country and using all my skill and my knowledge to start my dream work and helping to develop my country. There are many ways that I could use my fortune to help other people, especially to help other women. First of all, I could encourage them to get a higher education. And I could also share my knowledge, my skill, and my experience to my community and my society. And I am the first girl from my village who attend university, and I could prove that study can change my life. And since then, many girls from my community have tried their best to get to the university as well. So this is my biggest success and make me so proud about. I am very, very happy, and thank you to Room to Read and to Hugo Scholarship that led me to be a part of it. And this is a meaningful program. Every person who received this scholarship will pay you back with a wonderful smile. And believe me, they have a chance to change their life.
Cambodia is a focus country for Hugo. In fact, John didn't even wait for today's official launch to get started. Through a partnership with the Indochina Starfish Foundation, our first 31 Hugo scholars in Cambodia started university this January. It's my pleasure to hand it off to the next speaker today, my very good friend, Patricia Sutanto in Jakarta.
Thank you, Nick. Apology, I'm always overwhelmed with all this thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Patricia Sutanto. So I'm the Vice CEO of Pen Brothers, the largest garment in Indonesia. I think I always believe in education. Since 2014, actually, Pen Brothers and I has raised a lot of funding for educations for high school in Indonesia, 1,000 students every year. And since 2017, we are able to push ourselves on our CSR on 100 scholarship in University of Indonesia. Recently, I went back to study myself again, back to school, law school. And one of the projects that I've seen young women in Indonesia, as well as I'm sure in the rest of poor and developed countries, have to go into young marriage because they don't have fund or money to push themselves on higher educations. So when Nick Nash last December reached out to me and introduced me to John and Hugo, it was like a God blessing, because I feel that through all my life, I was privileged as women in Indonesia to have high educations and higher educations, and I can see educations can really change everyone's life and to have a better world to see. So for me, this is really my time, and I'm 50 this year. I feel that the impact has to be worldwide, and here we are. Hugo and John and the rest of the board members give me an honor to serve as one of the board. So I was blessed. I'm blessed with this Chinese New Year's recently, I feel that this is time to make impact. And here we are. We would like to showcase you how Hugo has reached out Cambodia by showing Thaitis, a young girl born in a very poor area of Vietnam. She was always inspired to become an English teacher, to actually teach in her community an English. And without further ado, we would like to show how Thaitis wonderful journey with John, Hugo, and Rumturit. Thank you.
I come from a poor family with 6 siblings in a rural area, so we wouldn't have the chance to study higher education. Moreover, my parents and other relatives in my community just wanted their children finish primary school and then they go to work and pay for the life and got married. So I try my best to study at school and work, help my family after school hours. I catch one grab in the river to sell for money, and I sell ads, duck ads. Luckily, in grade 7, I received scholarship, and I continue my study. And in university, I also received scholarship. Now I am an English teacher in primary school. I also management members in an English center in Ho Chi Minh City, and I also have a small shop with my younger brother. Now I am a volunteer for the Relay Fund to help other disadvantaged girls in university to have the same chance with me as me. When my younger brother in the 12th grade, he wanted to drop out of his school, and I tried to persuade him a lot, and he want to continue his study. I promised that I will support his education in university because I really want to help him to have the same chance with me. He is an art teacher in secondary school, and now he can help a lot of children. My older brother finished his education at the 9th grade. He worked 5 years later, and I saw his job is really hard and with a little money. Yeah, so I persuaded him to continue his study, but he said no way because he dropped out of school for a long time. But 2 years later, he asked me how could he continue his study, and I helped him apply the school and the course, and now he is an engineer. Education is the best and shortest way to break our poverty circle and to have a better life. This really has improved my family condition significantly. I am so proud of myself. Thanks to university education, we not only feel confident about ourselves when we go out, but also have financial stability to help other disadvantaged people.
So, and not just in Cambodia, but Hugo is already working in Vietnam. And through our partner, the Relay Fund, we already have 80 Hugo scholars in the university. And now I'm handing back to John, our founder of Hugo. John, the floor is yours. Thank you, everyone.
I'm not sure if anybody can see me or hear me.
Super. Go ahead, John.
Okay,
Clearly.
excellent. Thank you. My iPhone is in a weird position. Well, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Archana. Thank you, Nick. I'm thrilled not only to have the three of you on the Hugo founding board, but also 3 other Rockstar board members who are all on the call today. and we'll be having speaking roles in tomorrow's session. There is one more session tomorrow. So if you have friends who are in Europe, America, we do have a very convenient time frame tomorrow. You can email me, info@hugouniversity.org if you want more information. But Patricia Horgan, usually in Zurich, but in Oklahoma this week, along with Tim Kaflish and Ben Happ. Tim is Boston-based, Ben is New York-based. So our board is truly global. We're thrilled about that. And we're gonna make sure that this board, we made a vow as a founding board that this board will always be at least 50% female, but probably higher than that. So Nick, Ben, Tim, we're gonna have to do our best to continue our quest to build this board out. And we're really excited about where this is gonna go. I also want to do a quick shout out to the Relay Fund, the team in Vietnam. I really have them to thank for opening my eyes to what is possible. They are a group of unpaid volunteers. They've been working at this for over 10 years. And when I asked them what I could do to help, they said, John, we have more young women than we have scholarships available. And it was really through the team at the Relay Fund that I started to realize this was possible. We could do something quite a bit more. And then Indochina Starfish Foundation in Cambodia, we have a number of friends who are on the board there. So we started working with them. In addition, we are going to be working in Vietnam with a second NGO, the Saigon Children's Charity. We are in MOU signing mode with two wonderful NGOs in Pakistan, the Citizens Foundation, one of the most respected foundations in Pakistan. We're very excited to be bringing the Hugo program to Pakistan and also to India, working with a rock star NGO funded by two women who, like me, are corporate refugees. One's a former banker. One is actually former Microsoft, believe it or not. We'll be working with Aspire for her in India. And we're on the hunt for other NGOs to partner with. Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Nepal are all priority countries for us. And we are in discussions with NGOs right now in 2 of those 3 countries. Let me move on just to the business model. We want to leave time for Q&A, but what I want to do in the final couple of minutes I have available for me to speak is just run you through just the key points of the Hugo business model. There's, I think, 6 or 7 of them. So number 1, we will be a single focus NGO. We're going to do one thing and one thing only. We're going to do it well, and we're going to do it at scale. And that is help young women in low-income countries attend and graduate from university. The second key point is we will work with world-class NGOs. There are so many NGOs out there who are doing great work, and they're running into the same issue that I've seen, is that they have young women in their program who are going to potentially hit that glass ceiling and not have a chance to go to university. And you saw some of those NGOs earlier. Our goal is to eventually have a network of dozens of NGOs we can work with. And together, we can take advantage of their expertise, their in-country relationships, their knowledge of local conditions, and together partnering, we can help thousands of young women. The third key point is while we will start with scholarships, we will not stop there. By next year, we want to layer in, I shouldn't say we want to, we will layer in a life skills program. So that any Hugo scholar anywhere in the world can tune in to life skills classes over Zoom. It might be somebody at a bank teaching them about financial literacy or careers in finance. It might be somebody from a healthcare company talking to them about careers in nursing or about maternal health. The list will go on. We may have people talking, for example, about public speaking or how to use the internet effectively to get ahead in life. In addition to life skills, we'll be creating a Hugo career network. This is something I'm insanely excited about, to be able to offer these young women the chance to utilize all of our networks. When I say all of you, that includes all of you on this call, to help us create internships and full-time roles so these young women can find employment. The goal there is very simple. It's to reach out to these young women who may think of themselves as being disadvantaged, to say, you are suddenly turbocharged. You're not only going to university, you're going to have access to life skills, access to career coaching, access to job opportunities. A fourth key point of the model is very important to me. It's low overhead, something I've always lived and breathed. Teneo, who set up today's events and has been doing PR communications, I got to give a shout out to the team at Teneo. They've been fantastic. They are a pro bono partner. They're doing all of this for absolutely no cost. Following their model, I'm working for free. As founding CEO, I will never take $1 in salary, not one. And in fact, this will probably cost us money, Amy, because Amy and I have agreed that we are going to write a check every year to Hugo. So low overhead is very important to us. And then the founding board, thanks to the board, is covering all overhead expenses. And so any overhead we incur will be covered by the board. That means that every dollar that comes in can go directly to the scholarship program. The fifth point and final point is that we'll have a Robin Hood model. We will raise money amongst the wealthy, be they countries or communities or corporations or individuals. We'll raise money from the non-wealthy. We'll raise, if somebody wants to just give $800, that is enough for one girl to be in the Hugo program for 1 year. But we will utilize a Robin Hood model and raise money in the wealthiest parts of the world to help girls and young women in low-income countries. And so with that, that's kind of where I get to the point of telling you how you can help. I hope that right now, hundreds of you are saying, gosh, how can I help? What can I do, John? Tell me more. So if we can just go forward and talk about a couple of things. Number one is our goals. The simplest thing I can say, not simplest, the most exciting thing I can say is we have already committed to funding 1,000 scholarships this year. 1,000 young women by the end of 2022 will be in the Room to Read program. Our goal is to raise $8 million. This is not $8 million of 2022 funding. This is $8 million of funding for 2022, 23, 24, 25, e.g. the 4-year cycle of a young woman going through university. It sounds like a lot of money, but I'm thrilled to say, and many of you in this call have already gifted. Thank you to Nick Lai from Hong Kong, who texted me about 5 minutes ago and threw $10,000 more into the pot and said, I'll fund 12 scholarships. But if we can raise $8 million of total commitments, 2022 through 25, that means we can fund our first 10,000 scholarship years of education. 10,000 years, that's incredible. Even when billionaires endow programs at universities like Harvard or Stanford or Tsinghua, they typically are helping a couple of hundred students because those universities are very, very expensive. Hugo's premise is much simpler. We're sending young women to school in their own countries, and that's allowing us to help them at an average cost of $800 per girl scholar per year. So how can you help us? If we can go forward to the next slide, what we most want to do is build a network. I'm just going to start with being an ambassador. You can be an ambassador for Room to Read with your book club, in your company, with your church or your synagogue or your mosque. You can be helpful to Hugo in helping us to spread the word, of helping us to let people know who we are, what we do, and how we're doing it. You can make a financial pledge. We have something called the Founders Fund. And it's important to emphasize that with Founders Fund, the apostrophe is after the S. You can literally become a co-founder of Hugo. How great would it be to be present at the creation of one of the world's next great NGOs? And I admit we're not great yet, but we have aspirations to be great. So making a financial pledge, it can be a one-off, but what we really prefer is multi-year pledges, so when we make a promise to that young woman, we know that we're going to have the pledges coming in to support them. We're still getting buttoned up a little bit with our systems, but we will be accepting crypto. And I want to give a shout out to Tim for working on this, along with the team at Coinbase for volunteering. Credit cards, of course, and we have great help from our friends at Stripe in getting that set up. We'll be accepting appreciated stock, which can have tax advantages. Please email us, because the easiest way to get going is just to have us start a conversation with you. And of course, we have, thanks to the team at Teneo, our LinkedIn page, already over 250 followers in just the last 48 hours. So that's been very, very exciting. So as I was driving home from the gym today, the classic Dave Matthews song, So Much to Say, came on. And it reminded me that sometimes I talk too much. So I'm going to stop there, and we're going to move on and answer as many questions as we possibly can. Thank you again, everybody, for being with us. And thank you to everyone who has already committed to being part of this amazing movement we're creating. We are picking up sledgehammers and we are smashing through the glass ceiling.
Thank you, John. Look, it's been a really inspiring morning. We're coming from you, and I'm coming to you from Hong Kong, and it's been quite gloomy. And I was telling the team earlier before that this is probably the best news I've had in quite a long time, coming to you from Hong Kong. But you mentioned what astounds me is the cost. That it only takes $800 to actually fund a girl's education, which to me is still incredibly mind-boggling. Can you just break that down a little bit for us? And also, you've highlighted certain countries. I mean, I'm sure it's going to grow, but it's Pakistan, it's Vietnam, India, Cambodia, Bangladesh. Why these countries? Why are you starting in these countries?
Well, those are very good questions. I think part of it is that not only myself, but that this board have deep operational experience in those countries. So Anne, for example, who we all saw, is not only in Indonesia, has not only done this through her company, she's done a lot of girls' scholarships already through her company, but also she can bring us a network of companies, the government, which tends to match corporate donations in Indonesia if they go to education. And we just have a lot of experience working in this part of the world. These are also countries where we know a little bit of money can go a long way. The $800 figure is not a conjecture. We've had wonderful volunteers, Jerry Go in Singapore, Mark Fernandez in Singapore, working with local NGOs to say, we don't have gazillions of dollars. If we cannot make a meaningful difference in the life of the young woman on $800, let's just not do it. And what we continually hear is, no, we can do it. We have, over the last couple of years, found that funding young women in Vietnam and Cambodia, the cost has been as low as $500 and as high as about $1,000. So $800 is where we feel comfortable with the average. It does seem shockingly low, but what I will tell you is if you look at Prem Kumari, that wonderful nurse in Nepal, who I originally met in 2010 on a site visit, it cost Amy and I $2,100 total to put her through 3 years of nursing school. So we just made one little decision to splurge a little bit less on ourselves and do that for Prem Kumari. So we've tested the model and we're psyched that we can say, hand on heart, literally $800 is what it takes.
I want to make sure that I reach out to everybody and say, please send in your questions in the chat, because I'm only going to be doing the first couple of questions. And I'm really hoping to get your questions out there to John directly. John, can you also tell us about the women? How do you choose who gets the scholarship? What's the process that you go through? And actually, how do you also keep in touch and make sure that you're following them through the process of 2 years or 4 years? The stories that you've showed us, I mean, they're really inspiring. But it's at the same time, it's always about how do you stay in touch? How do you make sure that they're continuing to progress in this journey with you?
Well, that's really where the local NGOs come in, are so critical in both the selection, but also the monitoring. So with the local NGOs, they're looking for women, young women, and we're not being super, I would say the criteria really are these young women passionate? Are they talented? Do they have the stick-to-itiveness to make it through university? In most cases, just the fact that they finished secondary school is testament that they do have that stick-to-itiveness, because even that journey is typically not easy for a young woman in some of these countries that we work in. The monitoring is super important to us. We are at Room to Read, we're always very data-driven. I learned that at Microsoft working for good old Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates. Steve, show me the numbers, Ballmer, helped me to figure out that you always have to collect data. And you don't just collect data to celebrate your victories, you collect data to say what's going wrong, what can we do better, where do we need to improve the system over time. So those local NGOs will be critical to us, not just at selecting the scholars, but also in monitoring their progress. Now, eventually, we will have Hugo employees on the ground in each country as an additional way to engage with the young women. And one day we may run our own programs. We don't know that yet, but certainly we're also open to that.
I think there's a really great rate, since the girls have come to at least primary schools, and what you're concentrating on is university. Because we have a project called Anti-Slavery Project. And what we found out is, even though we help the girls, if we don't convince the family members, the father and the mother, why this girl needs to be educated, they see them more as an economic tool more than anything. So they would go to school, they bring them back in, and they'd be working in the fields, and they wouldn't be able to finish their schooling. But it sounds like with your group of young women, they've made the commitment, and they've got the support from the family to go an extra 4 years to give them the life skills, which it seems really, really critical.
Very definitely. And, we know there will be dropouts. I mean, these young women face, so we just want to be very transparent about it, is that we definitely will have some young women leave the program. But it's, that's okay. Hopefully we can work with them, but at least we're pretty confident from the young women we've seen so far during the beta test phases that they are going to stick with it. I think for a lot of the young women, I just think when they come from these backgrounds, they're scrappy, they're hungry. They know that this is their one big chance. Imagine someone coming to you to say, you're going to have a scholarship and we're guaranteeing you all 4 years. That is like Christmas and Hanukkah and the Easter Bunny all rolled into one.
So Stephen has a question about that. He's saying, will you consider funding young women who are admitted to overseas schools. Are you, because you mentioned about them being committed to these specific countries, but would you consider sending them overseas if they're admitted overseas?
Yeah, well, that question comes from Steve DeCray, who was the admissions officer at Kellogg when I applied to Kellogg back in 1988. And so Steve asked me great questions then, and is continuing to ask me great questions now. Steve, the answer to that is one thing I learned at Kellogg is to be very clear on your business model and try to get it right from the beginning with a limited scope. So in the early years, we will only be doing scholarships in the country of the young woman's birth. Or in some cases, it may be, for example, in Nepal, a lot of young women go across the border to India for nursing school. So we will be looking at that. A young woman in Bangladesh who wants to be a dentist, for example, if she gets a scholarship to go to somewhere like India, as long as the cost is reasonable, we will continue to work in country. Over time, I think these opportunities will come up. Over time, with Singapore-based board members, I'm certain that Nick or Archana or Anne's going to bring me an opportunity to say, hey, NUS wants to do some scholarships. We'll certainly look at that over time, but for the first 24 months, laser focused. We will, and especially with COVID and travel restrictions and the cost of sending someone overseas, we will be doing everything in country in the early years.
I think that's an encouragement. You've mentioned that you want to raise 8 million over the course of the next 4 years, but Stephen, if we want to send these girls overseas, we're going to have to raise that, that donation. So I think it's really responsibility of everybody here and the donors. If we can raise that amount, maybe we can send some girls overseas, but it's good that you're laser focused and bringing it locally first. Chris Flores, he has a question. You talked about you want to move forward eventually to create life skill sessions and training for these individuals. His question is, what's your view on ed tech and online universities? So while you may not be going overseas, would those kind of opportunities be accessible to the girls in school?
Well, certainly, but I mean, any young woman who has a cell phone right now can go sign up for a MOOC if she wants to. Does that help her get a job? Probably not. Does that help her self-esteem? Probably not. There's just still, when I talk to these young women, there's something about going to a campus, having professors, having classmates, having structure. I have no doubt we'll certainly encourage young women, if they're studying a subject where maybe they get to the point of mastery, we'll certainly help them to go find that MOOC or that online course. But if online learning was the be all and end all to help young women get to a place of increased stature and increased jobs, then Hugo wouldn't be needed. What I hear from the parents is they want their daughters to go to an actual physical university.
And speaking of young daughters and going to school, we had a little bit of talk before this, but I think it'd be interesting to know, why is it that you specifically wanted to concentrate on female education? Clearly you did a bit of that with Room to Read, but it was a literacy for all children. I think your personal story is really quite touching, and it'd be great to hear for the people on this call.
Yeah, certainly. That's a great question. I'll give you the head answer and then the heart answer. The head answer is very simple. There is a huge gender gap in university attainment, both enrollment and graduation rates for young women in developing countries. In places like Cambodia, Ghana, Senegal, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, less than 10% of women even complete a 2-year degree. If you look at Cambodia, for example, the Haways of the world are the exception rather than the rule. In Cambodia, less than 15% of the white-collar workforce is female. So while women in Norway, Sweden, the US have reached parity in tertiary education, and in some cases, women are doing better than men, quite a bit better than men, actually, in a lot of universities in the developed world. In low-income countries, there is a huge gap, and we intend to close that. Someone's asked me, will you fund boys? One day we hope to. One day I hope that Hugo can be a gender-neutral organization. We can't be that way, in my opinion, until we get closer, if not to gender parity. The hard answer of why I'm doing this is very simple. I'm the product of 3 educated women. My grandmother read to me, my mother read to me and always encouraged me and helped me with my homework. And my older sister, who was both a school teacher and a school librarian, read to me. I was her first little subject. I would, kind of like, she'd help me, like, quote unquote, check out books. Without those 3 women in my life, I would not be where I am today. I have a hyper educated wife who keeps me on my toes. It's all those women in my life that just make me convinced that, wow, if we could just if we could just help the next 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 Tatis and Haways, Prem Kumaris, the world would be such a better place.
Yeah. So we're living through COVID, right? We're going into year 3. And during COVID, what we found is, unfortunately, a lot of the charitableness has decreased as well, as people are guarding against their wallets. So if someone was sitting in front of you, what makes Hugo special? If they're going to be donating to various organizations, why is it that they must be donating to Hugo than compared to any other charities?
Well, I wouldn't say must, but I would just encourage people to say that when you.
It's a must, so.
I know.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here.
Some people have accused me of being slightly demanding and being a little too aggressive on fundraising. So I'm just trying to protect my reputation on that one, but totally facetiously and joking with you. But the argument I would make would be that when you educate a young woman, you are not only helping her, you're helping her family, as we saw with Hawaii, 8 younger siblings now getting educated because of her. And she and her brother built her parents a new home. So you help the family, you help the community. You see that with Tay-T and the fact that several hundred kids every year learn English because of her. And you help economic development. Hawaii will one day, when she finishes her master's degree, go back to Cambodia and do water engineering or do environmental sciences or something along that line. Number 2, the price is not high. I mean, I don't have enough money to go fund, $1 billion or $100 million program at a Harvard or a Yale, but certainly together we can all do this. And I would say thirdly, it's the collective action. I'm sure if I was a billionaire, it'd feel great to write a $100 million check to a program. None of us can do that. We have to do this together. And this is going to be a family. Hugo is going to be the most awesome global family. We're going to have so much fun doing this. We're going to be doing very serious work, but we're going to be doing it with really big heart and smiles on our faces and laughter. And, with COVID, with travel restrictions easing, I cannot wait to be on the road again. I cannot wait to be, and I'm really happy to say already, Mike Zimmerman and Justine Nolan, who are on the call, have already volunteered to host our first party in Sydney. Now, they'll wait till the government gives them, that it's legit to have a house party, but this is a call to action. If anybody's in Australia, in Sydney, wants to be involved in the first Hugo event, please email us, info@hugouniversity.org, and we'll get you connected up with Mike and Justine.
I think what's encouraging is that we are not billionaires. So the flip side, it's encouraging. We're not billionaires, and actually it's very small can go a very long way. And I think that's what makes it doable, especially when it comes to Hugo. Looking at all the videos that you shared, what was touching is you have a personal connection with many of these individuals, at least who started. I think that's the same kind of connection that some of the donors would be asking. If I contribute, would there be an opportunity to follow one of the young girls that I'm funding throughout the next 4 years? Are you going to be able to create that kind of touch point, or is it much of a burdensome for the girls to be consistently in touch with their donors? I mean, you must have the best practices. So I think that's one of the questions they were asking.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that our goal at Hugo is high visibility with very few demands on the young women. So we're not, for example, going to say to the young women, this is person X in Stockholm, and you need to write them a monthly letter, and you need to connect with them on Facebook or whatever. We just think that would be burdensome, and we think it really is. It could be a little bit almost obnoxious to require that of the young woman. But visibility is very important to us. So regular reporting on our progress. We've got volunteer video crews. All those videos, by the way, were shot by volunteers. So we've got volunteer video crews who are going to be out telling the stories, but most importantly, will be visits. We're going to encourage everybody who's part of the Founders Fund to join me and go to Vietnam, go to Cambodia, go to Bangladesh and meet these young women. Have a chance to sit down with them, but do it as equals, do it as peers, do it as mentors, do it as supporters. That's going to be a critical part of the Hugo model, is giving people a chance to go. And as you said, things can be kind of depressing. I know, having left Hong Kong a few weeks ago, I feel a bit of a burden off my shoulders, but I cannot wait till the first time we're able to go and all be together in Saigon and be with the Relay Fund scholars and be with the Saigon Children's Charity scholars. It's going to be, I will cry tears of joy when we have that moment, and we're going to do it this year.
So until we can actually meet in person, we have to rely on the digital format for us to connect. Right now, I don't think, someone was asking, are you going to have a Facebook page? They know that they can contact you through the email that you mentioned.
Yeah.
What are the other digital platforms that you will have so they can connect with you and the foundation?
LinkedIn, LinkedIn, LinkedIn.
And why is that? That's another question. Why is it LinkedIn?
What I have found in my own experience is that I don't get much of a response on Twitter because I'm not LeBron James. I'm not a celebrity. We may be open to other platforms over time, but again, we're a pirate ship of 35 volunteers. We are all doing this like at night and on weekends, and we just can't do everything at once. So the board looked at it, and Teneo helped us with their expert opinion, and they said LinkedIn seems like it is the best potential platform for you to connect with business leaders, and that's proven to be true. Some of my LinkedIn posts now get up to 300,000 views. I've had so many conversations with people who have connected us with LinkedIn, and not only am I on LinkedIn, but Hugo's on LinkedIn. So over time, maybe we layer in additional things, but again, when you're a scrappy startup, you've got to be super laser focused. Otherwise, you can get torn into a gazillion directions at once. Will I be doing TikTok videos? Probably not, but maybe some of our supporters will.
Maybe your volunteers will. Speaking of volunteers, you said this is a group made of volunteers. And by the way, just if anyone has any more questions, please do ask. We've got a couple of minutes more with John. But you spoke about volunteers. Are you hiring for Hugo, or is it really all made up of volunteers? How do you manage that?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked that question, because we are going to hire a couple of people. We haven't posted it yet because I thought what we should do is launch publicly, and then people know what Hugo is. And then we'll post a couple of job descriptions, a couple of JDs in the next couple of days. The two key hires we're going to make will be, number one, a chief of programs. This is somebody who will be based in Asia. It's very important that this person be based in Asia, in a city that allows people to travel in and out freely. If I may throw that out.
Okay.
And someone who can pivot through the region and spend time in Cambodia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, et cetera. And that chief of programs will be so important because they'll be overseeing the NGO partnerships we have currently, the NGO partnerships that we recruit, along with visiting with the young scholars and learning as much as we can about program quality. So chief of programs will be the first hire. The second hire will be a mid-level fundraising or development person. I don't feel right now that we need a senior level fundraising person to run strategy, because we've done this before and it's not our first rodeo. What I want to find is someone who's based in Southern California or willing to move, hint, hint, to sunny Southern California and be mentored by me and be mentored by the board and really take the reins of helping us with fundraising, with events, with donor communications, et cetera. So those two hires, chief of programs based in Asia, development associate or development manager based in Southern California. Sunny Southern California.
So we'll wait for the job application and make sure that we spread it across everyone here who has a vested interest. So we'll definitely play a role in that. I think what it's proven in the last couple of years that people who ran businesses are actually really good in running nonprofit organizations as well. The discipline you have in running a business, you've certainly run a very successful nonprofit with Room to Read as well, are very good. And that gives us a lot more confidence where our money goes. If there are any lessons that you've learned from running Room to Read to Hugo, what are the 2-3 key lessons that you think you would want to share that continues to build confidence about how Hugo will be run?
That's a really great question. I mean, the first thing I learned about running anything is run less of it every year. Every year, just work yourself towards the door, work yourself out of a job. I stopped being CEO in 2008. I was on the road constantly. On my book tour, my little 3-week book tour for leaving Microsoft to change the world turned into a 3-year book tour. Erin, my co-founder, took over as CEO. She hired, she delegated. Geeta came on and took over as the 3rd generation CEO from Erin. And everything for us was always recruit, delegate, repeat. Recruit, delegate, repeat. And I'll do that at Hugo. I'm always recruiting. Mostly volunteers, a few paid employees here and there, board members. That was an important thing about Room to Read. Number 2 is just always to be clear and transparent. To give honest answers, to know that when people asked a question, it was for a good reason. It was something that was on their mind, and we should give people clear and honest answers. So When I said, for example, we're only going to be on LinkedIn, I just have to admit, we can't be on 5 platforms at once. At some point, somebody will probably volunteer and say, hey, I'm an expert on Facebook. I'm an enthusiast on Facebook. May I start the Hugo Facebook group? At which point we're going to say, yeah, let's talk about that. Joking about TikTok aside, if somebody decides that they want to do the Hugo we'll certainly look at everything, but giving people giving people honest and candid answers to their questions is really important. And then I'd say third is really just financial efficiency. I'm so proud of the team at Room to Read because, Sherry, the Room to Read CFO, absolutely brilliant. 14 years, I believe it is, of Charity Navigator's highest 4-star rating. Only 1% of NGOs in the world can claim that. And no, it's always a team effort. Everybody's trying to figure out ways to be more transparent, more efficient, keep the overhead costs low enough that we can maintain that 4-star status. I'm hoping certainly that Hugo will probably not be rated for a few years because you got to have a track record, but I'm hoping we'll do that. I'm hoping we'll also be rated 4 stars by Charity Navigator.
Well, from LinkedIn, we might just go straight to Metaverse. So, hold on, so we might just jump and go there. Look, before I hand it over to John, again, for any closing remarks, I just want to say I wanted to be participating in this program. It was super early. I missed my entire editorial meeting to do this because I'm a product from South Korea. It's not just about BTS. We had a time where we were war stricken. And the one thing that our parents did is says, if anything, I'm just going to make sure that my kids can read and write. And so we have the highest literacy rate in South Korea, I think, among the entire world. And that we attribute that to our success. So there is a test case, there's a study out there that actually exists, and that's why I really wanted to support what John is doing here and the initiative that he has just launched. It's a wonderful day. I hope everybody on this call and more, word of mouth is really important and that we can support what he does. So John, why don't I hand it over to you for closing remarks?
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here and missing your editorial meeting. I hope they didn't make any wild decisions in your absence. You're going to force you to regret being here with us. Just in closing, I just should mention one more really key thing is, in addition to looking for individuals to join the Founders Fund, we also want to develop corporate relationships. We know that corporations out there right now have a lot of pressure on themselves to be doing good work in ESG, to be doing great work in gender. I would love it if there were 10 or 50 or 100 women's groups, whether it be the women's group at Citibank or Barclays or the women's group at Chevron, who said, hey, let's adopt Hugo. Let's have Hugo be part of our strategy around gender. This is an important issue also because when companies are hiring in frontier markets, they need talent and they need to meet their gender goals. And right now, all my friends who are hiring in these markets are telling me they're having trouble with that. So Hugo is going to be able to help. So basically, if we can get a lot of companies involved, if people can start chapters within their company. So somebody could say, for example, I'm going to start the Hugo chapter at Facebook's Singapore office. I'm going to start the Hugo chapter at Google's Sydney office. We welcome that also. We're not going to put a huge burden on you. We're just going to say, please go build out the network. Please help us to get more people into the Hugo family, and together we can do a lot more. So it's an exciting day for us. I'm going to try to keep us on time. What I'll say in closing is you all have the pledge, not just of me, but of the 35 volunteers, shout out to them, along with the founding board, that we will make you proud. We are going to do this. This is going to be one of the most exciting things to happen in the next 20 years. There are studies that predict, study from the World Economic Forum that was mentioned in my Bloomberg interview yesterday, that is going to take 140 years or something like that to get to gender parity for university education in the low-income countries. I'm just way too impatient. We're way too impatient for that. We know we can do it in this lifetime. We know we can make a dent in the next 10 or 20 years. It all starts now. I'm honored every one of you is with us today. Again, the website is hugouniversity.org. If you mistakenly type in hugouniversity.com, it will redirect. Thanks to Wes, our amazing IT volunteer. And of course, we are on LinkedIn under Hugo. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to the founding board. Thank you, Ellana, for being here. And let's do this. Let's make this happen. Let's help some young women have their dreams come true. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Great job, John.
Great job,
Bye.
John,
Bye.
Ellana, Archana, Nick, and Tony.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a good day.
Yay.